So Friday night has passed. Day 2 of the 2020 NFL Draft is in the books, and as is customary every year, we come out and all pretend to be experts and think that we know. And therefore, as a result, right here, right now, we are ready to determine winners and losers for something that we won't truly know the results one way or another for 2, 3, 4 years down the road. But nonetheless, A, that is the nature of the beast. B, even if players work out that you don't expect or don't work out that you did expect to, there are still certain things in terms of the draft game and understanding, how things could have went or where guys maybe should have fallen in the grandest scheme of things. Like, you can still effectively judge certain elements and components of a team's draft right after it happens. So don't ever let anybody give you that smug crap of, this is just stupid. A, we need something to talk about. B, it's fun. C, what the hell's wrong with going on record and being right and or wrong 2, 3, 4 years from now? Of course, usually people only seem to ever remember the things that you do wrong and not the many things that you were right on, or they like to dismiss that. All I'll say is, you go blast away at me when I miss something, but when I do get something right, I should also hear equivalent energy, observe equivalent energy devoted to it, and of course never will. But nonetheless, I'm going to enjoy the exercise here of talking about the winners and losers from day number 2, but I'm going to start off with the best and worst picks based off of how I saw it from Friday night. I'm going to start with the best picks for day number 2. This could be a combination of great value, great fit for the team, a variety of different factors. Number 1, Antoine Winfield Jr. going to the Buccaneers at 45. The Buccaneers had a need in their secondary, specifically at safety. Antoine Winfield, to me, was a borderline first-round talent. The Buccaneers were able to sit tight, get him to fall to him at the middle of round 2. Like, to me, this is the perfect example of great value and prospect and fit and need all coming together. Well done by the Bucs getting Winfield where the heck they did at 45. Josh Uche going to the New England Patriots at 60. Another guy, you look at him and you could easily project, playing under Belichick, that this is a guy that's going to go above and beyond where he was actually drafted. So I really like the fit. I like the versatility of the prospect, the athleticism of Uche. Another example maybe of just how Harbaugh isn't getting the most out of these guys in college. You see, like last year, Winovich being a third-round pick. You look at it and you say, some of these Michigan guys, Harbaugh is recruiting some great talent, but not getting the most out of them, and they come to the NFL and they do better than they did in college, and Uche might be another example of that. Willie Gay from Mississippi State, fascinating prospect. The Chiefs taking him at pick 63. When you're the defending world champions, you can put yourself in a position like this where you can gamble on guys. And there's no question there's some element of gamble here with Willie Gay with some of the off-the-field concerns that he has. Nonetheless, though, this is a team with Andy Reid, especially at the helm, that knows how to manage some of these more difficult personalities or knows how to get guys on the straight and narrow and kind of help guide them, lead them, and manage them. You just look at Andy Reid's track record in history and you say, okay, you like guys like Willie Gay getting an opportunity and a chance with Andy Reid because that could work out really, really well. But you also look at Gay as a prospect and you say, this is a guy that if he was on the straight and narrow and he was able to consistently play, he wasn't getting suspended, that he might have had first-round considerations here. So for the Chiefs, you're talking about end of round 2. This is where you swing for the fences on guys like this because if you connect, it could really pay off big time. Josh Jones going to the Arizona Cardinals in the 3rd round. They were able to sit there at 72 and get a first-round tackle. That's basically what it looks like for a lot of people. You're talking about a guy that could play left tackle, a guy that in some circles was viewed as maybe the 5th or 6th best offensive tackle prospect in this class. And the Cardinals were able to sit there and get this guy in round 3, give you another piece to protect your number 1 overall pick from last year in Kyler Murray. Great work there. And then Zach Bond, the Saints trading up to 74 to make sure they got their hands on him. He was a guy that, without some of the questions you maybe had about him, you look at it and you say, should he have really fallen to almost the middle of the 3rd round? No. And even though the Saints gave up a 3rd rounder next year to get into this spot to take him, you feel like it may very well be worth it for them. Some of the worst picks from day number 2. And keep in mind, in some cases, it's just you feel like these teams massively reached, or their situation dictated that this was the wrong way to go, or it's more about the overarching strategy and philosophy at play. I'll start off with my Bears and Cole Kmet at 43. Now, sure, the Bears and the Bears-friendly media are going to trot out the things about how he played at Notre Dame and he grew up a Bears fan. He's an area kid. And as a result, this is great and this is wonderful and blah, 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 blah. The point of the matter is, though, is that when you look at Kmet, there wasn't another tight end drafted until late in round 3. That tells you something about this draft class as a whole at the tight end position. But here are the Bears taking him at 43. And in and of itself, it's not the fact that they drafted Kmet alone or the fact that he is necessarily a bad prospect or it was outside of the realm of possibility that he would be taken there. Not necessarily at all. It's more about what it represents. A team that can't get the tight end position right. Now that they've drafted Kmet, they have 10 of them on the freaking roster. They just gave Jimmy Graham big money in 2020 for one reason or another that is still unbeknownst to me. All the while, not only do you have money tied into Jimmy Graham in 2020 that is sizable at that position, you are also paying several $7 million for Trey Burton to go the F away. And now you have to draft a guy like Cole Kmet. Like, I look at this and I say, you passed on Antoine Winfield Jr. or even a Delpit or even a KJ Hamler to take a Kmet here when you have all of that invested into the tight end position in 2020, knowing that this is a position that Ryan Pace and their staff can't get right any damn ways? Like, again, it's not just about the prospect. The prospect himself is not bad. The prospect himself, you're looking at a Kyle Rudolph-ish type of clone. This is about the right type of draft range for him. It's more about what it represents than it is the actual player and pick. Jalen Hurts, the Eagles taking him at 53. Like, if you told me this was the Eagles' 3rd round pick, I have absolutely no issues or concerns with that at all. Because I would sit there and say, okay, you're paying big money to a starter. It makes sense at some point that you would want to spend a mid-round pick on a young backup quarterback. Like, it's kind of a salary cap necessity in reality. If this was their 3rd round pick, I would compliment it and say that was a job well done. While I'm not surprised that Jalen Hurts ended up getting drafted by somebody in the 2nd round, I am really truly surprised that the Eagles took him here. Maybe they're envisioning some type of Taysom Hill type of role for him in the short term, feeling he provides maybe a little bit of insurance in case Carson Wentz goes down. I think I look at it overall, though, and I say, at least if the Eagles would have traded back a little bit and accumulated some additional picks, maybe I wouldn't have had such a problem with this. Maybe if their secondary was truly buttoned up, I wouldn't have had such a problem with this. But I look at this and I say, man, it feels almost like a misplaced luxury pick that could have waited another round or at least peeled back several picks to get some additional draft pick capital. That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't want to totally crap on the selection of Jalen Hurts itself. Again, though, it's about the strategy, the philosophy, the execution of it that I will question. And then I look at the Packers. It's one thing to trade up in round 1, get Jordan Love. You know, it seems like I'm one of the few people that's really aligned with that being an okay strategy. So be it. I'll talk about that in another video. But when I look at what they did in day 2, this is where it really starts to get head-scratching to me. And when you piece it all together, yeah, cheeseheads are probably having a meltdown right now, and I don't know that I can blame them. To me, they massively reached taking A.J. Dillon, the running back from Boston College, at the end of round 2. Now, here's a guy, certainly you could say that in 4th quarter and close game situations, you know, trying to tackle his almost 250-pound ass is going to be a challenge, and that is true. And it may be one of those things where he ends up playing a little bit to the level of this pick. But again, this to me is about knowing the draft game and understanding value and understanding where guys are going. And you took A.J. Dillon here. Why not wait a little bit? Or maybe just take Zach Moss here if you're going to insist on taking a running back, even though I didn't feel like running back was that big of a need. All the while, with both of these picks, you ignored arguably your biggest need of all, which was wide receiver. You still have somebody to play opposite Devontae Adams. And then Josiah DeGara, the 3rd round tight end from Cincinnati. Like, it just felt like there were better tight ends on the board. Again, not necessarily knocking the selection of a tight end here. You could use something in that passing game for sure. Maybe you bring him in, he plays along with Sternberger and others. But, yeah, it just felt like they massively reached on both of their day 2 picks. I really didn't like what the Packers did at all. And I thought they were some of the worst picks of the day. Now, in terms of overall winners and losers, I look at the Arizona Cardinals. You look at what they did. They took their second-round pick and turned it into DeAndre Hopkins. That's a win. Getting Josh Jones at pick 72, added bonus. The Baltimore Ravens, just kind of sitting around. They get J.K. Dobbins. They get Justin Madubuike. They get Devin Duvernay. Get Malik Harrison. You get the Phillips kid. Like, you look at this type of draft for the Ravens, and you look at this and you point to it and say, okay, this may be the draft class overall when you factor in Queen in round 1 that makes them a Super Bowl team. Whether that's in 2020 or 2021, this is the type of work, this is the type of draft that plugs some of those holes, gives you some long-term answers at some positions, and I really, really like what the Ravens did without having to do a whole lot. Just kind of sit back and let things fall to them. The Cleveland Browns, the skid marks. It's not the first time you talk about them being winners in the offseason, and it doesn't matter, but getting Delpit at 44, personal preference would have been Antoine Winfield Jr. if I was them, but Delpit, was a guy at one point in time that was being projected as a first-round safety, so that athletic talent is certainly there. They acquired a third-round pick from the Saints to move back in the third round, meaning they got a third-rounder in the holster for next year's draft, additional draft pick capital. So if and when Baker Mayfield truly proves to be a bust, and they feel like they're in a position that they need to get a quarterback in that 2021 draft class, well, you've got some additional draft pick ammo to work with if you need it. And then getting Jordan Elliott, just a solid body of work for the Cleveland Browns here. Same thing for the Dallas Cowboys. They were just able to sit back, relax, and have Trayvon Diggs and Neville Gallimore fall to them in the second and third rounds, respectively. These were guys that were getting first-round mock draft love at one point in time. Or at least, worst-case scenario, second-round love for Gallimore when all was said and done. And instead you get Diggs in the middle of round 2, and you get Gallimore in the middle of round 3. Like, maybe the Cowboys should lock up Jerry Jones on his own and let him call the shots in the future going forward if it's going to be like this. Hell. And then the New York Jets. Associating them with draft winners feels really weird. But getting Denzel Mims at the end of round 2, is he going to be Devin Smith, or is he going to actually be able to stick around and play in the league? We'll see. But they got speed at wide receiver, which they really needed. Ashton Davis can't tackle or hit to save his damn life, but he can cover the hell out of the ball. So getting him at this point, even when you say, was safety really that big of a need? It's a valid question for the Jets. That said, really hard to knock the value here. This is one of those best player available on the board type of situations, and these are the types of guys you should take. And then getting Zuniga, the guy from Florida, the edge rusher. Maybe this is going to make up for the Ja'Kai Polite drafting before, but this is a team that still needs an impact edge rusher, and this guy certainly could come in, if he's healthy, and be that type of presence. Now we talk about some of the losers. I've already talked at length about the Green Bay Packers, just felt they reached big on both their second and third round pick, didn't address their biggest need. It was just questionable execution and strategy to me. I look at the Los Angeles Rams, and again, you talk about kind of that spinning the wheels from a roster management standpoint. You cut Todd Gurley and then spend your first, second round pick on Cam Akers. Again, it's not knocking the prospect. It's not saying I don't like Akers or that it wasn't a decent spot to take him. But you just spent a third round pick on Henderson last year. Now you're spending a second round pick on Cam Akers. Kind of what are you doing here? And then in the third round, you get Van Jefferson. Look, I think Jefferson, it does have some Cooper Kupp elements to him. I completely agree. And where they took him was not necessarily bad at all by any stretch of the imagination. But you just traded away Brandon Cooks to then reinvest that second round pick in the wide receiver position. Just seems like questionable roster management to me. All the while, you could say, yeah, you got cheaper at those positions, but cheaper doesn't always equate to better. Furthermore, where does the offensive line help? Doesn't matter if you can't block anybody. Oh, the losers. I talked about the Eagles. Like I said, if they traded back a little bit and taken Jalen Hurts, if Jalen Hurts was their pick in round number 3, I would have no issue with it. It just didn't feel like the best utilization of that draft pick capital right there. That's all I'm going to say. And then, of course, the Houston Texans. Apparently, Bob had to deal with the Detroit Lions in the draft that they caught him on camera and looked like he was really mad, and that deal fell through, so he couldn't even get that right. And he basically just traded away DeAndre Hopkins in a second-round pick. If you look at it within the context of this draft, he traded away DeAndre Hopkins in a second-round pick for Ross Blacklock, Brandon Cooks, and David Johnson. Like, who the hell does that? Who does that? Bob does that too. Like, when you look at the context and the scope of all of this, you say to yourself, that's clown show shit right there. Well, after all, it is Bill O'Brien, so what the hell else would you expect? But that's how I see day 2 of the 2020 NFL Draft. You're always welcome to post your comments and give me your thoughts on what happened, how your teams did, how other teams did. I may actually decide to read some of them because what the hell? Why not? I'll be back again after day number 3 of the draft. Yeehaw.